GINNY SWEETHIPS Flying Circus by Neal Barrett, Jr. In 1989, this story took 5th place for the Hugo Award, 7th place for Asimov's Reader's Poll, 9th place for the Locus Award, and was nominated for the Nebula Award. It was originally published in the February 1988 issue of Isaac Asimov's science fiction magazine, and republished 5 times over the next 3 years in multiple anthologies. It appeared in a collection of the author's works called Perpetuity, Blues, and Other Stories in 2000, and another in 2012 called Other Seasons, The Best of Neal Barrett, Jr. It appeared in 2 more anthologies, one in 2008 and one in 2012. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel, Quasar Spectra. GINNY SWEETHIPS Flying Circus. Dell drove and Ginny sat.
"They're taking their sweet time," Ginny said. "Damned if they're not."
"They're itchy," Dell said. "Everyone's itchy. Everyone's looking to stay alive."
"Huh?"
Ginny showed disgust.
"I sure don't care for sitting out here in the sun. My price is going up by the minute. You wait and see if it doesn't."
"Don't get greedy," Dell said. Ginny curled her toes on the dash. Her legs felt warm in the sun. The stockade was 100 yards off. Barbed wire looped above the walls. The sign over the gate read, "First Church of the Unleaded God and Ace High Refinery. Welcome. Keep out." The refinery needed paint. It had likely been silver, but was now dull as pewter and black rust. Ginny leaned out the window and called to Possum Dark.
"What's happening, friend? Those mothers dead in there or what?"
"Thinking," Possum said. "Fixing to make a move. Considering what to do." Possum Dark sat atop the van in a steno chair bolted to the roof. Circling the chair was a swivel ring mount sporting fine twin 50s black as grease. Possum had a death view clean around. Keeping out the sun was a red Cinzano umbrella faded pink. Possum studied the stockade and watched heat distort the flats. He didn't care for the effect. He was suspicious of things less than cut and dried, apprehensive of illusions of every kind. He scratched his nose and curled his tail around his leg. The gate opened up and men started across the scrub. He teased them in his sights. He prayed they'd do something silly and grand. Possum counted 37 men. A few carried sidearms, openly or concealed. Possum spotted them all at once. He wasn't too concerned. This seemed like an easygoing bunch, more intent on fun than fracas. Still, there was always the hope that he was wrong. The men milled about. They wore patched denim and faded shirts. Possum made them nervous. Dell countered that. His appearance set them at ease. The men looked at Dell, poked each other, and grinned. Dell was scrawny and bald except for tufts around his ears. The dusty black coat was too big. His neck thrust out of his shirt like a newborn buzzard looking for meat. The men forgot Possum and gathered around, waiting to see what Dell would do, waiting for Dell to get around to showing them what they'd come to see. The van was painted turtle green. Gold Barnum type named the owner, and the selected vices for sale. GINNY SWEETHIPS Flying Circus. Sex, tacos, dangerous drugs. Dell puttered about with this and that. He unhitched the wagon from the van and folded out a handy little stage. It didn't take 3 minutes to set up, but he dragged it out to 10, then 10 on top of that. The men started to whistle and clap their hands. Dell looked alarmed. They liked that. He stumbled and they laughed. "Hey, mister, you got a girl in there or not?" a man called out.
"Better be something here besides you,"
another said. Gents, Dell said, raising his hands for quiet, Ginny Sweethips herself will so on appear on this stage, and you'll be more than glad you waited. Your every wish will be fulfilled, I promise you that. I'm bringing beauty to the wastelands, gents. Lust the way you like it, passion unrestrained, sexual crimes you never dreamed. Cut the talk, mister, a man with peach pit eyes shouted to Dell. Show us what you got. Others joined in, stomped their feet, and whistled. Dell knew he had them. Anger was what he wanted, frustration and denial, hatred waiting for sweet release. He waved them off, but they wouldn't stop. He placed one hand on the door of the van and brought them to silence at once. The double doors opened. A worn red curtain was revealed, stenciled, with hearts and cherubs. Dell extended his hand. He seemed to search behind the curtain, one eye closed in concentration. He looked alarmed, groping for something he couldn't find. Uncertain, he remembered how to do this trick at all. And then, in a sudden burst of motion, Ginny did a double forward flip and appeared like glory on the stage. The men broke into shouts of wild abandon. Ginny led them in a cheer. She was dressed for the occasion. Short white skirt, shiny, bright white boots with tassels. White sweater with a big red G sewn on the front. Ginny Sweethips, gents, Dell announced with a flair, giving you her own interpretation of Barbara Jean, the cheerleader next door. Innocent as snow, yet a little bit wicked and willing to learn if Biff the quarterback will only teach her. Now, what do you say to that? They whistled and yelled and stomped. Ginny strutted and switched, doing long-legged kicks that left them gasping with delight. 37 pairs of eyes showed their needs. Men guessed at hidden parts, dusted off scenarios of violence and love. Then, as quickly as she'd come, Ginny was gone. Men threatened to storm the stage. Dell grinned without concern. The curtain parted and Ginny was back, blonde hair replaced with saucy red, costume changed in the blink of an eye. Dell introduced Nurse Nora, an angel of mercy, weak as soup in the hands of patient Pete. Moments later, hair black as a raven's throat, she was schoolteacher Sally, cold as well water, until Steve, the bad student, loosed the fury chained within. Ginny vanished again. Applause thundered over the flats. Dell urged them on, then spread his hands for quiet. Did I lie to you, gents? Is she all you ever dreamed? Is this the love you've wanted all your life? Could you ask for sweeter limbs, for softer flesh, for whiter teeth, for brighter eyes? Yeah, but is she real? A man shouted, a man with a broken face sewn up like a sock. We're religious people here. We don't fuck with no machines. Others echoed the question with bold shouts and shaking fists. Now, I don't blame you, sir, at all, Dell said. I've had a few dolly droids myself, a plastic embrace at best. I'll grant you that. Not for the likes of you, for I can tell you're a man who knows his women. No, sir, Ginny's real as rain, and she's yours in the role of your choice. 7 minutes of bliss. It'll seem like a lifetime, gents. I promise you that. Your goods gladly returned if I'm a liar, and all for only a U.S. gallon of gas. Howls and groans at that, as Dell expected. That's a cheat is what it is. Ain't a woman worth it. Gas is better than gold, and we work damn hard to get it. Dell stood his ground, looked grim and disappointed. I'd be the last man alive to try to part you from your goods, Dell said. It's not my place to drive a fellow into the arms of sweet content, to make him rest his manly frame on golden thighs. Not if he thinks this lovely girl's not worth the fee, no, sir. I don't do business that way, and never have." The men moved closer. Dell could smell their discontent. He read sly thoughts above their heads. There was always this moment when it occurred to them there was a way Ginny's delights might be obtained for free. "Give it some thought, friends," Dell said. "A man's got to do what he's got to do, and while you're making up your minds, turn your eyes to the top of the van for a startling and absolutely free display of the slickest bit of marksmanship you're ever likely to see." Before Dell's words were out of his mouth and on the way, before the men could scarcely comprehend, Ginny appeared again and tossed a dozen china saucers in the air. Possum Dark moved in a blur, turned 140 degrees in his bolted steno chair, and whipped his guns on target, blasting saucers to dust. Thunder rolled across the flats. Crockery rained on the men below. Possum stood and offered a pink killer grin and a little bow. The men saw 6'9" and a quarter inches of happy marsupial fury and awesome speed, of black agate eyes and a snout full of icy varmint teeth. Doubts were swept aside. 50 caliber madness wasn't the answer. Fun today was clearly not for free. "Gentlemen, start your engines," Dell smiled. "I'll be right here to take your fee. Enjoy a hot taco while you wait your turn at glory. Have a look at our display of fine pharmaceutical wonders and mind-expanding drugs." In moments, men were making their way back to the stockade. Soon after that, they returned toting battered tins of gas. Dell sniffed each gallon, in case some buffoon thought water would get him by. Each man received a token and took his place. Dell sold tacos and dangerous drugs, taking what he could get in trade: candles and mason jars, a rusty knife, half a manual on full field maintenance for the Chrysler Mark XX urban tank. The drugs were different colors, but the same: 12 parts oregano, 3 parts rabbit shit, 1 part marijuana stems. All this under Possum's watchful eye. "By God," said the first man out of the van, "she's worth it, I'll tell you that. Have her do the nurse, you won't regret it." "The school teacher's best," said the second man through. "I've never seen the like. I don't care if she's real or she ain't." "What's in these tacos?" a customer asked Dell. "Nobody you know, mister," Dell said. "It's been a long day," Ginny said. "I'm pooped, and that's the truth." She wrinkled up her nose. "First thing we hit a town, you hose her out good now, Dell. Place smells like a sewer, or maybe worse." Dell squinted at the sky and pulled up under the scant shade of mesquite. He stepped out and kicked the tires. Ginny got down, walked around, and stretched. "It's getting late," Dell said. "You want to go on or stop here?" "You figure those boys might decide to get a rebate on this gas?" "I hope they do," Possum said from atop the van. "You're a pisser," Jenny laughed. "I'll say that. Hell, let's keep going. I could use a hot bath and town food. What you figure's up the road?" "East, bad news," Dell said. "If this map's worth anything at all. Ginny, night driving's no good. You don't know what's waiting down the road." "I know what's on the roof," Ginny said. "Let's do it. I'm itchy all over with bugs and dirt, and that tub keeps shining in my head. You want me to drive a spell? I sure will." "Get in," Dell grumbled. "Your driving's scarier than anything I'll meet." Morning arrived in purple shadow and metal tones, copper, silver, and gold. From a distance, East Bad News looked to Ginny like garbage strewn carelessly over the flats. Closer, it looked like larger garbage. Tin shacks and tents and haphazard buildings rehashed from whatever they were before. Cook fires burned, and the locals wandered about and yawned and scratched. 3 places offered food, other places bed and a bath. Something to look forward to, at least. She spotted the sign down at the far end of town. Morrow's Repairs, armaments, machinery, electronic shit of all kinds.
"Hold it," Ginny said. "Pull her in right there."
Dell looked alarmed. "What for?"
"Don't get excited. There's gear needs tending in back. I just want 'em to take a look."
"Didn't mention it to me," Dell said. Ginny saw the sad and droopy eyes, the tired wisps of hair sticking flat to Dell's ears.
"Dell, there wasn't anything to mention," she said in a kindly tone. "Nothing you can really put your finger on, I mean, okay?"
"Whatever you think," Dell said, clearly out of sorts. Ginny sighed and got out. Barbed wire surrounded the yard behind the shop. The yard was ankle-deep in tangles of rope and copper cable, rusted, unidentifiable parts. A battered pickup hugged the wall. Morning heat curled the tin roof of the building. More parts spilled out of the door. Possum made a funny noise, and Ginny saw the dog step into the light. A shepherd, maybe 6'2". It showed Possum dark, yellow eyes. A man appeared behind the dog, wiping heavy grease on his pants. Bare to the waist, hair like stuffing out of a chair. Features hard as rock, flint eyes to match.
"Not bad looking," thought Ginny, "if you cleaned him up good."
"Well, now," said the man. He glanced at the van, read the legend on the side, took in Ginny from head to toe. "What can I do for you, little lady?"
"I'm not real little, and don't guess I'm any lady," Ginny said. "Whatever you're thinking, don't. You open for business or just talk?"
The man grinned. "My name's Morrow Gain. Never turn business away if I can help it."
"I need electric stuff."
"We got it. What's the problem?"
"Uh-uh." Ginny shook her head. "First, I gotta ask, you do confidential work or tell everything you know?"
"Secret's my middle name," Morrow said. "Might cost a little more, but you got it."
"How much?"
Morrow closed one eye. "Now, how do I know that? You got a nuclear device in there or a broken watch? Drive it on in, we'll take a look." He aimed a greasy finger at Possum Dark. "Leave him outside."
"No way."
"No arms in the shop, that's a rule."
"He isn't carrying. Just the guns, you see." Ginny smiled. "You can shake him down if you like. I wouldn't, I don't think."
"He looks imposing, all right."
"I'd say he is."
"What the hell?" Morrow said. "Drive it in." Dog unlocked the gate. Possum climbed down and followed with oily eyes.
"Go find us a place to stay," Ginny said to Dell. "Clean, if you can find it. All the hot water in town. Christ's sakes, Dell, you still sulking or what?"
"Don't worry about me," Dell said. "Don't concern yourself at all."
"Right."
She hopped behind the wheel. Morrow began kicking the door of his shop. It finally sprang free, wide enough to take the van. The supply wagon rocked along behind. Morrow lifted the tarp, eyed the 37 tins of unleaded with great interest. "You get lousy mileage or what?" he asked Ginny. Ginny didn't answer. She stepped out of the van. Light came through the broken panes of glass. The skinny windows reminded her of a church.
Her eyes got used to shadow, and she saw that that's what it was. Pews sat to the side, piled high with auto parts. A 1997 Olds was jacked up before the altar. "Nice place you got here," she said. "It works for me," Morrow told her. "Now, what kind of trouble you got? Something in the wiring? You said electric stuff."
"I didn't mean the motor. Back here." She led him to the rear and opened the doors.
"God Almighty," Morrow said.
"Smells a little raunchy right now. Can't help that till we hose her down."
Ginny stepped inside, looked back, and saw Morrow still on the ground.
"You coming up or not?"
"Just thinking."
"About what?"
She'd seen him watching her move and didn't really have to ask.
"Well,
Morrow shuffled his feet.
How do you figure on paying? For whatever it is I got to do."
"Gas. You take a look. Tell me how many tins. I say yes or no."
"We could work something out."
"We could, huh?"
"Sure."
Morrow gave her a foolish grin.
"Why not?"
Ginny didn't blink.
"Mister, what kind of girl do you think I am?"
Morrow looked puzzled and intent.
"I can read good, lady, believe it or not. I figured you wasn't tacos or dangerous drugs."
"You figured wrong," Ginny said. "Sex is just software to me, and don't you forget it. I haven't got all day to watch you mooning over my parts. I got to move or stand still. When I stand still, you look. When I move, you look more. Can't fault you for that. I'm about the prettiest thing you ever saw. Don't let it get in the way of your work."
Morrow couldn't think of much to say. He took a breath and stepped into the van. There was a bed bolted flat against the floor, a red cotton spread, a worn satin pillow that said Durango, Colorado, and pictured chipmunks and waterfalls, an end table, a pink-shaded lamp with flamingos on the side, red curtains on the walls, ballet prints, and a naked Minnie Mouse.
"Something else," Morrow said.
"Back here's the problem,"
Ginny said. She pulled a curtain aside at the front of the van. There was a plywood cabinet fitted with brass screws. Ginny took a key out of her jeans and opened it up. Morrow stared a minute, then laughed aloud.
"Sensory tapes? Well, I'll be a son of a bitch."
He took a new look at Ginny, a look Ginny didn't miss.
"Haven't seen a rig like this in years. Didn't know there were any still around."
"I've got 3 tapes," Ginny explained. "A brunette, a redhead, and a blonde. Found a whole cache in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Had to look about 300 or 400 to find girls that looked close enough to me. Nearly went nuts before it was over. Anyway, I did it. Spliced 'em down to 7 minutes each."
Morrow glanced back at the bed.
"Well, how do you put 'em under?"
"Little needle comes up out the mattress. Sticks 'em in the ass lightning fast. They're out like that, 7-minute dose. Headpiece is in the end table there. I get it on and off them real quick. Wires go under the floorboards back here to the rig."
"Jesus," Morrow said. "They ever catch you at this, you are cooked, lady."
"That's what Possum's for," Ginny said. "Possum's pretty good at what he does. Now, what's that look all about?"
"I wasn't sure right off if you were real."
Ginny laughed aloud.
"So what do you think now?"
"I think maybe you are."
"Right," Ginny said. "It's Dell who's the droid. Not me. Wimp 9 series. Didn't make a whole lot. Not much demand. The customers think it's me. Never think to look at him. He's a damn good barker and pretty good at tacos and drugs. A little too sensitive, you ask me. Well, nobody's perfect, so they say."
"The trouble you're having's in the rig?"
"I guess," Ginny said. "Beats the hell out of me."
She bit her lip and wrinkled her brow. Morrow found the gestures most inviting. "Slips a little, I think. Maybe I got a short, huh?"
"Maybe." Morrow fiddled with the rig, testing one of the spools with his thumb. "I'll have to get in here and see."
"It's all yours. I'll be wherever it is Dell's got me staying."
"Ruby John's," Morrow said. "Only place there is with a good roof. I'd like to take you out to dinner."
"Well, sure you would."
"You've got a real shitty attitude, friend."
"I get a whole lot of practice,"
Jenny said. "And I've got a certain amount of pride," Morrow told her. "I don't intend to ask you more than 3 or 4 times, and that's it."
Ginny nodded, right on the edge of approval. "You've got promise," she said. "Not a whole lot, maybe, but some."
"Does that mean dinner or not?"
"Means not. Means if I wanted to have dinner with some guy, you'd maybe fit the bill."
Morrow's eyes got hot. "Hell with you, lady. I don't need the company that bad."
"Fine."
Ginny sniffed the air and walked out.
"You have a nice day."
Morrow watched her walk. Watched denims mold her legs, studied the hydraulics of her hips, considered several unlikely acts, considered cleaning up, searching for proper clothes, considered finding a bottle and watching the tapes. A plastic embrace at best, or so he'd heard, but a lot less hassle in the end. Possum Dark watched the van disappear into the shop. He felt uneasy at once. His place was on top, keeping Ginny from harm, sending feral prayers for murder to absent genetic gods. His eyes hadn't left Dog since he'd appeared. Primal smells, old fears and needs assailed his senses. Dog locked the gate and turned around. Didn't come closer, just turned. "I'm Dog Quick," he said, folding hairy arms. "I don't much care for possums." "I don't much care for dogs," said Possum Dark. Dog seemed to understand. "What did you do before the war?" "Worked in theme park, our wildlife heritage, that kind of shit. What about you?" "Security. What else?" Dog made a face. "Learned a little electrics. Picked up a lot more from Morrow Gain. I've done worse." He nodded toward the shop. "You like to shoot people with that thing?" "Anytime I get the chance." "You ever play any cards?" "Some." Possum Dark showed his teeth. "I guess I can handle myself with a dog." "For real goods?" Dog returned the grin. "New deck, unbroken seal, table stakes," Possum said. Morrow showed up at Ruby John's Cot Emporium close to noon. Ginny had a semi-private stall covered by a blanket. She'd bathed and braided her hair and cut the legs clean off her jeans. She tugged at Morrow's heart. "It'll be tomorrow morning," Morrow said. "Cost you 10 gallons of gas."
10 gallons, Ginny said. "That's stealing, and you know it."
"Take it or leave it," Morrow said. "You got a bad head in that rig. Gonna come right off. You don't fix it. You wouldn't like that. Your customers wouldn't like it any at all." Ginny appeared subdued, but not much.
4 gallons, tops."
8. I gotta make the parts myself."
5.
6, Morrow said. 6, and I take you to dinner.
5.5, and I want to be out of this sweatbox at dawn. On the road and gone when the sun starts baking your lovely town.
"Damn, you're fun to have around." Ginny smiled, sweet and disarming. An unexpected event.
"I'm all right. You got to get to know me."
"Just how do I go about that?"
"You don't."
The smile turned sober.
"I haven't figured that one out."
It looked like rain to the north. Sunrise was dreary.
Muddy, less than spectacular yellows and reds. Colors through a window no one had bothered to wash. Morrow had the van brought out. He said he'd thrown in a lube and hosed out the back. 5.5 gallons were gone out of the wagon. Ginny had Dell count while Morrow watched. "I'm honest," Morrow said. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Ginny said, glancing curiously at Dog, who was looking rather strange. He seemed out of sorts, sulky and off his feed. Ginny followed his eyes and saw Possum atop the van. Possum showed a wet possum grin. "Where are you headed now?" Morrow asked, wanting to hold her as long as he could. "South," Ginny said, since she was facing that direction. "I wouldn't," Morrow said. "Not real friendly folks down there." "Well, I'm not picky. Business is business." "No, sir." Morrow shook his head. "Bad business is what it is. You got the dry heaves, south and east. Doom City after that. Straight down and you'll hit the hackers. Might run into Fort Prue, bunch of disgruntled insurance agents out on the flats. Stay clear away from them. Isn't worth whatever you'll make." "You've been a big help," Ginny said. Morrow gripped her door. "You ever listen to anyone, lady? I'm giving good advice." "Fine," Ginny said. "I'm about as grateful as I can be." Morrow watched her leave. He was consumed by her appearance. The day seemed to focus in her eyes. Nothing he said pleased her in the least. Still, her disdain was friendly enough. There was no malice at all that he could see. There was something about the sound of Doom City she didn't like. Ginny told Dell to head south and maybe west. Around noon, a yellow haze appeared on the ragged rim of the world, like someone rolling a cheap, dirty rug across the flats.
"Sandstorm," Possum called from the roof. "Right out of the west. I don't like it at all. I think we better turn. Looks like trouble coming fast."
There was nothing Possum said she couldn't see. He had a habit of saying either too little or more than enough. She told him to cover his guns and get inside, that the sand would take his hide and there was nothing out there he needed to kill that wouldn't wait. Possum Dark sulked but climbed down. Hunched in back of the van, he grasped air in the shape of grips and trigger guards, practiced rage and windage in his head.
"I'll bet I can beat that storm," Dell said. "I got this feeling I can do it."
"Beat it where?" Ginny said. "We don't know where we are or what's ahead."
"That's true," Dell said. "All the more reason, then, to get there soon as we can."
Ginny stepped out and viewed the world with disregard. "I got sand in my teeth and in my toes," she complained. "I'll bet that Morrow Gain knows right where storms likely be. I'll bet that's what happened, all right."
"Seemed like a decent sort to me," Dell said.
"Well, that's what I mean," Ginny said. "You can't trust a man like that at all." The storm had seemed to last a couple of days. Ginny figured maybe an hour. The sky looked bad as cabbage soup. The land looked just the way it had. She couldn't see the difference between sand recently gone or newly arrived. Dell got the van going again. Ginny thought about yesterday's bath. East bad news had its points. Before they topped the first rise, Possum Dark began to stomp on the roof.
"Vehicles to port," he called out. "Sedans and pickup trucks, flatbeds and semis. Buses of all kinds."
"What are they doing?" Dell said.
"Coming right at us, hauling timber."
"Doing what?" Ginny made a face. "Damn it all, Dale, will you stop the car? I swear you're a driving fool." Dell stopped. Ginny climbed up with Possum to watch. The caravan kept a straight line. Cars and trucks weren't exactly hauling timber, but they were. Each carried a section of a wall. Split logs bound together, sharpened at the top. The lead car turned again. In a moment, There was a wooden stockade assembled on the flats, square as if you'd drawn it with a rule, a stockade and a gate. Over the gate, a wooden sign. Fort Prue, games of chance and amusement, term whole life, half-life, death.
I don't like it,
said Possum Dark. You don't like anything still alive, Ginny said.
They've got small arms and they're a nervous-looking bunch.
They're just horny, Possum. That's the same as nervous, or close enough. Possum pretended to understand. Looks like they're pulled up for the night, she called to Dell. Let's do some business, friend. The overhead don't ever stop. 5 of them came out to the van. They all looked alike. Stringy, darkened by the sun, bare to the waist except for collars and striped ties. Each carried an attaché case, thin as 2 slices of bread without butter. 2 had pistols stuck in their belts. The leader carried a fine-looking, sawed-off Remington 12. It hung by a Camus guitar strap to his waist. Dell didn't like him at all. He had perfect white teeth and a bald head, eyes the color of jellyfish melting on the beach. He studied the sign on the van and looked at Dell. You got a whore inside or not? Dell looked him straight on.
I'm a little displeased at that. It's not the way to talk.
Hey, the man gave Dell a wink.
Well, you don't have to give us the pitch. We're show business folk ourselves.
Is that right? Wheels of chance and honest cards? Odds I know you'll like. I'm head actuary of this bunch. Name's Fred. That animal up there has a piss-poor attitude, friend. No reason to poke that weapon down my throat. We're friendly people here. No reason I can see why Possum'd spray this place with lead and diuretics, Dell said. Less you can think of something I can't. Fred smiled at that. The sun made a big gold ball on his head. I guess we'll try your girl, he told Dell. Course, we got to see her first. What do you take in trade? Goods as fine as what you're getting in return. I've got just the thing. The head actuary winked again. The gesture was starting to irritate Dell. Fred nodded, and a friend drew clean white paper from his case. This here is heavy bond, he told Dell, shuffling the edges with his thumb. 50% linen weave, and we got it by the ream. Won't find anything like it. You can mark on it good or trade it off. 7th Mercenary Riders came through a week ago. Whole brigade of mounted horse. Near cleaned us out, but we can spare a few reams. We got pencils, too. Murado 2s and 3s, unsharpened, with erasers on the end. When's the last time you saw that? Why, this stuff's good as gold. We got staples and legal pads, claim forms, maim forms, forms of every sort. Deals on wheels is what we got. And you got gas under wraps in the wagon behind your van. I can smell it, plain from here. Friend, we can sure talk some business with you there. I got 17 rusty-ass guzzlers running dry. A gnat whisker wire sparked hot in Dell's head. He could see it in the underwriter's eyes. Gasoline greed was what it was, and he knew these men were bent on more than fleshly pleasure. He knew with androidial dread that, when they could, they'd make their play. Well, now, the gas is not for trade, he said as calmly as he could. Sex and tacos and dangerous drugs is what we sell. No problem, the actuary said. Why, no problem at all. Just an idea is all it was. You get that little gal out here, and I'll bring in my crew. How's half a ream a man sound to you? Just as fair as it can be, Dell said, thinking that half of that would have been fine, knowing dead certain now that Fred intended to take back whatever he gave.
That Morrow fellow was right, Dell said. These insurance boys are bad news. Best thing we can do is take off and let it go.
Pooh, said Ginny. That's just the way men are. They come in mad as foaming dogs and go away like cats licking cream. That's the nature of the fornicating trade. You wait and see. Besides, they won't get funny with Possum Dark.
You wouldn't pray for rain if you were a fire, Dell muttered. Well, I'm not unhitching the gas. I'll set you up a stage over the tarp. You can do your number there.
Suit yourself, Ginny said, kissing a plastic cheek and scooting him out the door. Now get on out of here and let me start getting cute. It seemed to be going well. Cheerleader Barbara Jean awoke forgotten wet dreams, left their mouths as dry as snakes, set them up for Sally the Teach and Nora Nurse, secret violations of the soul. Maybe Ginny was right, Dell decided. Faced with girly delights, a man's normally shitty outlook disappeared. When he was done, he didn't want to wreck a thing for an hour or maybe 2. Didn't care about killing for half a day. Dell could only guess at this magic and how it worked. Data was one thing, sweet encounters something else. He caught Possum's eye and felt secure. 48 men waited their turns. Possum knew the caliber of their arms, the length of every blade. His black twin 50s blessed them all. Fred the actuary sidled up and grinned at Dell. We sure ought to talk about gas. That's what we ought to do. Look, Dell said, gas isn't for trade. I told you that. Go talk to those boys at the refinery, same as us. Tried to. They got no use for office supplies. That's not my problem, Dell said. Maybe it is. Dell didn't miss the razor tones. You got something to say, just say it. Half of your gas. We pay our way with the girl and don't give you any trouble. You forget about him. Fred studied Possum Dark. I can afford losses better than you. Listen, I know what you are, friend. I know you're not a man. Had a CPA droid just like you toward the war. Maybe we can talk, Dell said, trying to figure what to do. Say now, that's what I'd like to hear. Ginny's fourth customer staggered out, wild-eyed and white around the gills. Goddamn, try the nurse, he bawled to the others. Never had nothing like it in my life. Next, Dell said, and started stacking bond paper. Lust is the name of the game, gents. What did I tell you now? The girl plastic too? Fred asked. Real as you, Dell said. We make some kind of deal. How do I know you'll keep your word? Jesus, Fred said. What do you think I am? You got my life under writer's oath. The next customer exploded through the curtain, tripped, and fell on his face. Picked himself up and shook his head. He looked damaged, bleeding around the eyes. She's a tiger, Dell announced, wondering what the hell was going on. Excuse me a minute, he told Fred and slipped inside the van. Just what are you doing in here? He asked Ginny. Those boys look like they've been through a thrasher. Beats me, Ginny said, halfway between Nora and Barbara Jean. Last old boy jerked around like a snake having a fit, started pulling out his hair. Something ain't right here, Dell. It's got to be the tapes. I figure that Morrow fellow's a cheat. We got trouble inside and out, Dell told her. The head of this bunch wants our gas. Well, he sure can't have it, by God. Ginny, the man's got bug-spit eyes. Says he'll take his chances with Possum. We better clear out while we can. Ginny shook her head. That'll rile him for sure. Give me a minute or two. We done a bunch of Noras and a Sally. I'll switch 'em all to Barbara Jean and see. Dell slipped back outside. It seemed a dubious answer at best.
That's some woman, said Fred. She's something else today. Your insurance boys have got her fired.
Fred grinned at that.
Guess I'd better give her a try.
I wouldn't, Dell said.
Why not?
Let her calm down some. Might be more than you want to handle. He knew at once this wasn't the thing to say. Fred turned the color of ketchup pie.
Why, you plastic piece of shit. I can handle any woman born or put together out of a kit.
Suit yourself, Dell said, feeling the day going down the drain. No charge at all.
Damn right there's not.
Fred jerked the next man out of line.
Get ready in there, little lady. I'm going to handle all your policy needs.
The men cheered. Possum Dark, who understood at least 3/5 of the trouble down below, shot Dell a questioning look.
Got any of those tacos?
Someone asked. Not likely, Dell said. Dell considered turning himself off. Android suicide seemed the answer. But in less than 3 minutes, unnatural howls began to come from the van. The howls turned to shrieks. Life underwriters went rigid. Then Fred emerged, shattered. He looked like a man who'd kicked a bear with boils. His joints appeared to bend the wrong way. He looked whomper-eyed at Dell, dazed and out of sync. Everything happened then in seconds thin as wire. Dell saw Fred find him, saw the oil spill eyes catch him clean, saw the sawed-off barrels match the eyes so fast even electric feet couldn't snatch him out of the way in time. Dell's arm exploded. He let it go and ran for the van. Possum couldn't help. The actuary was below and too close. The twin 50s opened up. Underwriters fled. Possum stitched the sand and sent them flying, ragged and dead. Dell reached the driver's seat as lead peppered the van. He felt slightly silly. Sitting there with one arm, one hand on the wheel. Move over, Jenny said. That isn't going to work. I guess not. Ginny sent them lurching through the scrub. Never saw anything like it in my life, she said aloud. Turn that poor fella on. He started twisting out of his socks, bones snapping like sticks. Damnedest orgasm I ever saw. Something's not working just right. Well, I can see that, Dell. Jesus, what's that? Ginny twisted the wheel as a large part of the desert rose straight up in the air. Smoking sand rained down on the van. Rockets, Dell said grimly. That's the reason they figured that crazy-fingered possum was a snap. Watch where you're going, girl. 2 fiery pillars exploded ahead. Dell leaned out the window and looked back. Half of Fort Prue's wall was in pursuit. Possum sprayed everything in sight, but he couldn't spot where the rockets were coming from. Underwriter assault cars split up, came at them from every side. Trying to flank us, Dell said. A rocket burst to the right. Ginny, I'm not real sure what to do. How's the stub? Slight electric tingle, like a doorbell half a mile away. Ginny, they get us in a circle. We're in very deep shit. They hit that gas. We won't have to worry about a thing. Oh, Lord, now why did I think of that? Possum hit a semi clean on. It came to a stop and died, fell over like a bug. Dell could see that being a truck and a wall all at once had its problems, balance being one. Head right at them, he told Ginny. Then veer off sharp. They can't turn quick, going fast. Dale! Bullets rattled the van. Something heavy made a noise. The van skewed to a halt. Ginny took her hands off the wheel and looked grim. It appears they got the tires. Dale, we're flat dead is what we are. Let's get out of this thing. And do what? Dell wondered. Bearings seemed to roll about in his head. He sensed a malfunction on the way. The Fort Prue vehicles shrieked to a stop. Crazed life agents pulled out and came at them over the flats, firing small arms and hurling stones. A rocket burst nearby. Possum's guns suddenly stopped. Ginny grimaced in disgust. "Don't you tell me we're out of ammo, Possum Dark. That stuff's plenty hard to get." Possum started to speak. Dell waved his good arm to the north. "Hey now, would you look at that?" Suddenly there was confusion in the underwriters' ranks. A vaguely familiar pickup had appeared on the rise. The driver weaved through traffic, hurling grenades. They exploded in clusters, bright pink bouquets. He spotted the man with the rocket lying flat atop a bus. Grenades stopped him cold. Underwriters abandoned the field and ran. Ginny saw a fairly peculiar sight. 6 black Harleys had joined the truck. Chow dogs with Uzis snaked in and out of the ranks, motors snarling and spewing horsetails of sand high in the air. They showed no mercy at all, picking off stragglers as they ran. A few underwriters made it to cover. In a moment, it was over. Fort Prue fled in sectional disarray. "Well, if that wasn't just in the nick of time," Dell said.
I hate chow dogs, Possum said. They got black tongues, and that's a fact.
"I hope you folks are all right," Morrow said. "Well now, friend, looks as if you've thrown an arm."
"Nothing real serious," Dell said.
"I'm grateful," Ginny said. "Guess I gotta tell you that."
Morrow was taken by her penetrating charm, her thankless manner, the fetching smudge of grease on her knee. He thought she was cute as a pup.
"I felt it was something I had to do, circumstances being what they are." "And just what circumstances are that?" Ginny asked. "That pesky shepherd dog's sort of responsible for any trouble you might have had. Got a little pissed when Possum cleaned him out. 5-card stud, I think it was. Of course, there might have been marking and crimping of cards. I couldn't say."
Ginny blew hair out of her eyes.
"Mister, far as I can see, you're not making a lot of sense." "I'm real embarrassed about this. That dog got mad and kind of screwed up your gear." "You let a dog repair my stuff?" Ginny said. "Perfectly good technician. Taught him mostly myself. Okay if you don't get his dander up. Those shepherds are inbred, so I hear. What he did was set your tapes in a loop and speed 'em up. Customer'd get, say, 26 times his money's worth. Works out to a Mach 7 fuck. Could cause bodily harm." "Lord, I ought to shoot you in the foot," Ginny said.
"Look," Morrow said,
"I stand behind my work, and I got here quick as I could. Brought friends along to help, and I'm eating the cost of that." "Damn right," Ginny said.
The chow dogs sat their Harleys a ways off and glared at Possum. Possum Dark glared back. He secretly admired their leather gear, the Purina crests sewn on their backs.
"I'll be adding up costs," Ginny said. "I'm expecting full repairs." "You'll get it. Of course you'll have to spend some time in bad news. Might take a little while."
She caught his look and had to laugh.
"You're a stubborn son of a bitch. I'll give you that. What did you do with that dog?" "You want taco meat? I'll make you a deal." "Yuck. I guess I'll pass."
Dell began to weave about in roughly trapezoidal squares. Smoke started to curl out of his stub.
"For Christ's sake, Possum, sit on him or something," Ginny said. "I can fix that," Morrow told her. "You've about fixed enough, seems to me." "We're going to get along fine. You wait and see."
You think so? Ginny looked alarmed. I better not get used to having you around.
It could happen.
It could just as easy as not.
I'll see about changing that tire, Morrow said. We ought to get Dell out of the sun. You think about finding something nice to wear to dinner. East Bad News is kind of picky. We got a lot of pride around here.